What you are about to hear explains why the Iraqi dinar is under pressure again and why the next few months could matter more than most people realize. This is not based on rumors or online chatter. It is based on what is happening inside Iraq's economy right now, what officials are saying openly, and how real financial pressure is building behind the scenes. In recent days, attention has shifted sharply toward the exchange rate of the US dollar against the Iraqi dinar. According to officials inside the Al Sulaymania currency exchange market, the dollar is moving closer to a level many people hoped Iraq would never see again. The expectation now is that the dollar could reach 150,000 dinars per $100, a level that signals rising strain across the system. This is not a sudden spike without warning. The rate has already crossed 148,000 dinars per $100 in several markets. What matters is not just the number, but what is driving it. Increased demand for dollars is colliding with limited supply, and the Central Bank of Iraq is not injecting enough foreign currency to calm the pressure. When demand rises faster than supply, the result is predictable: prices move higher. But in Iraq's case, this pressure is coming from multiple directions at the same time, which makes the situation more difficult to control. One of the biggest issues is oil. Iraq depends heavily on oil revenues, and global oil prices have been under pressure. When oil prices fall, Iraq earns fewer dollars. At the same time, government spending inside the country remains high. This creates a gap between what Iraq earns and what it needs to spend. That gap eventually shows up in the currency market. Adding to the challenge is the fact that Iraq cannot simply increase oil exports to compensate. Production limits set by the OPEC Plus alliance restrict how much oil Iraq can sell, even if demand exists. This means Iraq's ability to bring in additional dollars through exports is capped, regardless of internal needs. As a result, the central bank has fewer options. It cannot print dollars. It can only manage what comes in through oil sales and other limited sources. When those inflows weaken, the pressure moves directly into the exchange rate. Currency market officials in Kurdistan have pointed out another important factor. Iraq still relies too heavily on exporting raw crude oil instead of refined products. Selling crude brings in revenue, but refining oil into gasoline, gas, or other products creates more value and more stable income. Right now, Iraq lacks enough refineries to do this at scale. This forces the country to miss opportunities to export higher-value products to nearby markets like Turkey and Syria. The Kurdistan region has some refining capacity, but it is not being used to its full potential. This structural weakness matters because it limits Iraq's flexibility. When oil prices fall and exports are capped, there are few backup options to support the flow of foreign currency into the system. Official data from the Ministry of Finance shows how concentrated Iraq's income remains. Between January and August of last year, the federal budget collected over 80 trillion dinars. More than 90% of that came from oil. Non-oil revenue made up only a small fraction of total income. That imbalance is a long-term problem. When nearly all revenue depends on one source, any disruption hits the entire economy. The exchange rate becomes one of the first pressure points. For ordinary Iraqis, this is not just a chart or a headline. A weaker dinar means higher prices for imported goods, food, medicine, and basic supplies. It reduces purchasing power and increases frustration, especially for families living on fixed incomes. For businesses, currency instability makes planning difficult. Costs change quickly, margins shrink, and confidence weakens. This slows investment and reinforces the cycle of caution and delay. The government is aware of these risks, which is why it has focused heavily on maintaining exchange rate stability over the past year. The current level around 1,310 dinars per dollar has acted as an anchor. But anchors only hold when pressure stays within limits. As demand continues to rise and dollar supply remains tight, maintaining that anchor becomes harder. Some people online interpret any movement in the exchange rate as a signal of something dramatic coming next. That thinking is dangerous. Currency pressure does not automatically lead to reform, revaluation, or sudden change. More often, it forces governments to choose between difficult options. Those options include tighter controls, spending adjustments, or gradual policy shifts rather than bold moves. Another topic that often resurfaces during times like this is the idea of special exchange rates or contract rates. It is important to be clear, there is no evidence that such rates are available to the public. These stories usually refer to rare historical agreements tied to specific entities and old contracts, not something that applies today. For everyone else, the official rate enforced through licensed banks is the only rate that matters. Believing otherwise leads people to make poor decisions or fall victim to false promises. What makes the current moment important is not just the pressure itself, but how Iraq responds to it. The country is already working through broader reforms, including budget restructuring, debt management, and banking modernization. These efforts take time, and they are designed to reduce vulnerability, not eliminate it overnight. A sudden exchange rate change would not fix these underlying issues. In fact, moving too quickly could make inflation worse and damage public trust. That is why officials continue to prioritize stability, even when the market pushes in the opposite direction. Looking ahead, much depends on oil prices, spending discipline, and how effectively Iraq can expand non-oil revenue. Investment in refining capacity, better use of regional infrastructure, and stronger coordination between Baghdad and the Kurdistan region could ease pressure over time. But those are medium and long-term solutions, not immediate fixes. For viewers watching from outside Iraq, the key takeaway is this: exchange rate pressure is a signal, not a conclusion. It reflects stress inside the system, but it does not predict sudden windfalls or instant transformations. For those inside Iraq, the focus remains on daily realities. Salaries, prices, services, and stability matter far more than speculation. This is a period that rewards patience and clear thinking. Noise will increase, headlines will become more dramatic, but real change comes from structural decisions, not market panic. As the situation develops, the most important thing is to stay grounded in verified information and understand the difference between pressure and policy. The story of the Iraqi dinar right now is not about collapse or breakthrough. It is about tension, limits, and how a resource-dependent economy manages stress in a changing global environment. We will continue tracking these developments closely and break them down clearly as official information emerges. Stay informed, stay cautious, and stay focused on what actually matters.